This is Grief and Grit, from heartache to high fives with a dash of sass. The podcast that turns the tables on traditional grief talks with a fresh, sassy spin. Listen in for candid conversations about the messy, awkward, and downright hilarious aspects of dealing with loss. Because sometimes the best way to cope is with a little laughter and a lot of grit.
Hi, Simony.
Hey, Greer, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I am good.
Yeah.
I'm finally enjoying the warm weather.
Yay.
And no rain. I think we mention that on nearly every episode because
We've
it's
had a
just
lot
been
of it
so
lately.
much rain.
Yeah, we have definitely had a lot of it lately.
Yeah, but otherwise good.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving soon to go to Chicago
Yeah.
to see Bianca, so I'm really excited about that.
And you haven't seen her yet, right?
No,
Since she moved to Chicago?
no,
Or did you?
she has been home, but I
Okay.
haven't seen her in Chicago.
In Chicago. You
Yeah.
haven't seen their new place.
And I haven't seen Chicago,
Okay, cool.
other than many years ago.
Okay.
So I am looking forward to that.
Nice.
And yeah, all is good.
Yay.
And what about you?
Well, the kids started camp today. It's been a crazy week/month. I learned Maycember recently, and it really is a thing. It's like that December rush with all of the holiday programming and the parties and the
Yes.
recitals. And we don't do recitals because we're not in those activities, but it's just all the stuff.
It's all busy.
So we had all of that with the end of the school year. They got out on Thursday, and now we're officially rising second and third graders.
Amazing.
So exciting.
Amazing.
And they started camp today. They're
Fabulous.
doing just regular summer camp for Amelie, and then Jack is doing Ninja Warrior. It's pretty cool.
Oh.
I know.
He'll love
I live
that.
vicariously through my children, clearly. I mean, yeah. So
He's gonna love that.
it's exciting.
Great.
Yeah, but I'm really excited about today's episode.
Me too.
So, we have been doing this for almost a year, which is insane.
I know.
And we have never had widowhood from the male side. And, here we are, two widows hosting this podcast about grief. We have similar stories in terms of when we were widowed and having young kids, and we have this from the mom perspective.
Yes.
And today, especially with Father's Day coming up, we get to hear it from a dad and from a widower. So we have my new friend Kurt Moore here. We know each other kind of just through
life in Atlanta.
Exactly. Yes. And knowing all the same people and seeing each other at synagogue. And I know your brother-in-law and from high school. And so, yeah. So Kurt is here today to talk to us about his grief journey. So we're sorry that this is what brought you here, but we're really excited to hear your story and also hear about your late wife, Emily, who I also knew.
Yep.
So welcome. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thanks for
Welcome, Kirk.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could be here. Grief is something that touches everybody at some point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully later rather than earlier. But if it's earlier, we tend to learn how to live with it.
Definitely. No, you're absolutely right. And there's also a resiliency that I think definitely helps us along the way when we are
We
thrown
think so,
into a
right?
situation. Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned that there is you have a line of grief through your family. So why don't you go ahead and
Yeah.
dive in? Tell us about yourself and your story.
Yeah. So I've been in Atlanta since '03 when I graduated college. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I came from a roughly a middle class neighborhood. My mom was first generation American. My dad was a multiple generation New Orleanian. And they met because they were next door neighbors. So when my grandparents escaped the Holocaust and moved to New Orleans, they settled in a middle class neighborhood in uptown New Orleans. And my dad lived next door with his mom and 4 of his brothers. So as far as grief goes on both sides, I mean, obviously we all have it, and we can't. I mean, if you go back far enough, I'm sure you can find it in every, a ridiculous amount in any family.
Right.
But the first thing I knew about grief, I mean, and all of this happened before I was born. So it's just basically like seeing my parents and the things that they told me. My dad was one of 5 boys, Catholic boys. His father was an electrician. He was in the Navy and came down to New Orleans in the port, and that's how he met my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
So my dad's family is from upstate New York, Catholic or Protestant.
Right.
And then when my grandfather came down here, he met my grandmother, and they started a life together. Well, my dad was about 13. He had another brother that was around 14, all the way down to 6 months. My grandfather was wiring a house. He was an electrician and electrocuted himself.
Oh, my.
So my grandmother, back in it's probably the 50s, had to raise 5 boys by herself.
Wow.
Her mother lived with her.
Okay.
And my grandmother, her father died when she was a baby.
Oh, wow.
So there's that cycle of grief, right?
It's kind of in your DNA,
Yeah.
like in a way. Yeah. Wow.
Right. And then, so there's that side, right?
Mhm.
Then, as far as my mom's concerned, you have the whole trauma of the Holocaust, right?
Right.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
my grandmother went to the market, went away. Grandfather was gone for 2 years, didn't know where he was, got up, left. Half the family died, all that kind of,
Totally.
All that trauma.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So growing up, you guys probably know this from your family growing up, but that kind of bleeds through. Like your grandparents say things, or why do bad things always happen to us? You have that, that whole like mentality. Well,
Right.
so continuing on, my brother's 5 years older than me. He was in college, and my dad got diagnosed with lung cancer. My dad died when I was 13.
Wow.
So I was raised by a single grieving mother who, at the time, I guess, I don't know if you asked them if they would say the same thing, but my mom emotionally was just totally distraught. Her and my dad were like best friends, next door neighbor. My brother, him and I are 2 different types of people. I'm a sales guy. He's an engineer. So you can imagine us handling things differently.
Yeah.
So growing up at 13, I ended up living with a single mom. My brother was already in college. So I saw the difficulties that she dealt with grief, as well as getting back on her feet professionally, emotionally, socially.
And I think back then it was something that was not spoken about.
It was not spoken.
And you were not allowed to show your emotions, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. Speak about it.
Well, I don't really care about showing my emotions. I'll do it to anybody. I don't, that's one thing that I have on my side more so than most men, is that emotionally I'm more towards the female side.
That's a good.
And I'm sure my girlfriend would tell you the same thing.
That's a good case.
And I feel like it is like, I feel like that's just, it's a requirement to be able to go through this process almost like in a way that you can breathe on the other side.
Right.
It releases so much of the pain that we experience going through this.
Well, right. Like if you go to therapy and you have talk therapy with a therapist, you're talking it out.
Exactly.
Since this happened to me at a young age, when I was 13, I've always kind of looked at it as like it was my somewhat duty to help anybody I knew that had the same kind of pain.
Yes.
So anybody it's not like, I don't seek it, but if somebody is having an issue, I want them. I know what it feels like, right? And I know how lonely it is, and how you think you're one person in the world handling this, but everybody has to deal with it. They just deal with it differently.
Totally.
And every situation is different. Nobody's same situation is the same way.
Correct.
So, I had a different perspective on single women, growing up with a single mom. She was in the workforce and having to watch all that. And And then I went to school at the University of Alabama, Roll Tide.
Yeah, boo. Good, good.
Yeah. And then I met a girl from Dunwoody freshman year in English class. Her name was Emily Rothlark, and she went to Dunwoody High School. And I guess we became friends because I slept a lot in class, and the teacher liked to throw erasers at me. And in fact, when I went to propose to her later on, we went back to Alabama, and I went back into that English class, but there was a class there.
Oh my!
So we couldn't do it in there. So then I had to go out to the quad and do it. So
That's like a very cute story, though.
Yeah.
I like that.
yeah. So we dated throughout college. I want to say the first part of grief that I ever watched Emily deal with, and it wasn't really her grief, it was more mine, was when my mom's mom passed away when we were in college. And it's always interesting to learn how people deal with it, right?
Of course.
Anyway, I don't have anything else to say about that, really. Just kind of moving along.
Yeah.
We graduated from college. She graduated in May. I was going to graduate in August. She moved back here to go do an internship at Home Depot.
Okay.
The day I graduated, I moved into her mom's basement. I gave myself a month to find a job. Her mom was actually going through breast cancer at the time.
Oh my goodness.
And that was part of the reason why, not only did I not want to be there for a month, I wanted to be out there as fast as possible so they could do their thing. So that's how I started my career. I ended up being in sales. I ended up working for a company called Cintas, doing first aid and safety equipment, and then got out of that because it was '08 and the turn down of the market. And at the time, there were two different types of sales that I was looking at. One was medical device and one was IT. And my uncle, who I had mentioned to y'all earlier, he was a hospital administrator in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And he had dealt a lot with medical device professionals and things like that. He's like, you probably should do that. You're pretty good with people, whatever. I ended up being all right at it. The first company I worked for was a company that sold Portacath and Huber needles.
Okay.
So if anybody's ever had cancer, they usually get a port put in.
Yes.
That's what a Portacath is.
Yes.
Okay.
Portacath is basically,
Yes.
it's a tunneled central line catheter that's implanted under your skin. So there's risk of infection when you get chemo on a regular basis.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So that was my first step into the oncology, interventional radiology, oncology nurses world. So I did that, worked there for 4 years. Then I got recruited to a startup company selling a bone marrow biopsy drill for bone cancer and bone marrow biopsies.
Yeah.
In my territory, when we started, this was a startup company. When I say startup company, there were 0 sales. Like they hadn't sold the product yet. And I ended up getting Emory to be the second largest customer in the country.
Wow.
Ended up being number 2 in the country.
Wow.
Ended up leaving the company. We can go on a different podcast to talk about sales guys and their careers and how that works. But moved on, and throughout my career, stayed in the medical device world, all that. And then Emily got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when I was working for a company. The kids were 7 and 4. We had to come home on October 31st to go trick-or-treating with our 7 and 4-year-old. And it was rough. There's not one person in the world I'd wish what we dealt with on.
Right.
And right now, I make money and keep my house afloat by selling a product that kills cancer. If you came up with a cure for cancer tomorrow, I'd be happy to find another job.
Right.
So I just want to kind of get that out of the way, right?
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
So Emily got sick. It was in October, and I'd say by that next May, I had to get a new job in my mind because I couldn't be on the road sales guy. We had to get chemo and I had to be there for the kids and all that stuff. So then I changed my career and went back into not back into, but leveraged my healthcare sales into healthcare IT.
Okay.
Worked for 2 IT companies.
Yeah.
One was a company called Ingenious Med based out of Atlanta. The other one was a company called Salesforce.com.
Yep.
Selling Salesforce to hospitals up and down the East Coast.
Okay.
And then I really missed medical device sales, wanted to get back into it for a while, but never felt like I could. Like never felt like I was at a spot where the kids would be all right if I left for the night, or
Right.
if I could, not be in an office every day because I didn't need to be here, there, or whatever.
Right.
So I left the company without a job
Okay.
and started applying for all these different medical device jobs. And I ended up getting taken on by a company called that sold treatment for colorectal cancer in the liver. And
Okay.
that's who I work for now.
Wow.
So I
You sell what? Emily was diagnosed with
Emily
it,
was
right?
diagnosed with colon cancer, and so was my
Right.
colorectal cancer, and so was actually my girlfriend's husband. So
Oh,
Wow.
I didn't realize they had the same. Okay.
it's not the same, but it's the same type,
Type,
right?
right,
Like
right.
colorectal
Yes.
usually means anything in the colon and the rectum.
Okay.
So the appendix is part of the colon, the rectum is part of the,
Got
that's
it.
kind of how
Okay. Okay.
similar.
Wow.
So that was so in May, that's when you left, you found the IT. And then how long after that was Emily still ill
So
for?
Emily was ill for the first. So I worked for that company for about a year and a half. I want to say I started I probably ended up starting in like June,
Right.
and then she passed the following March.
Wow.
So, and then the company had some downturns and had to get rid of some people. And luckily they were good to me. They were really good to me. And they kept me on for longer than they definitely a lot longer than my productivity.
Right.
And you guys probably know that.
I mean,
Yeah.
grieving
Yeah.
and yes,
Yeah.
the whole bereavement leave, we definitely need to do some
Yeah.
episodes on
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the kids were how old when she passed?
The kids they were 7 and 4 when she got diagnosed. They were 8 and 5. My daughter's the oldest, Hallie. My son, Jordan's the youngest. And yeah, they were 8 and 5. They were 7 and 4 when they got diagnosed, 8 and 5 when she passed. It was 18 months.
So they were young going through the whole,
Yes.
so that's part of their grief journey as well, is watching her be so ill.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I think that they kind of, I don't want to say it's an advantage, but I think they were kind of sensitized to it because she was a chronic colitis patient. So they always saw her not feeling well.
Right,
So I
right.
don't know, where I talk about this with my girlfriend, where we wonder how old which kid remembers what, right?
Right. Yes.
And like, there's even things that, my dad died when I was 13. I think I make up stories about him in my head.
You too.
Right? Like
You
that
do.
I think are right, that I don't know if they're right or not.
Correct.
Right?
And I remember that so well. So when Mark passed away, so we also, went through that whole cancer journey, and the kids, for 8 months. I mean, he was in the hospital for 8 months because with leukemia, you don't come out. Anyway, so I remember Hannah was 3 at the time, or 4, one of the twins, and we lived near a horse riding stable. And we would drive down that road, and every time we went past, she would say, "Oh, that's where Dad and I used to go ride horses." Now, Mark didn't know the back end of a horse, right? And the therapist at the time said that they will make up their own memories, and you need to allow them to do that, because that's the only way in their little heads they can keep that person alive. Because at 4, what memories can they have? They're now 21. I mean, there's very few.
Kids are super resilient.
Oh, super, super, super.
And primal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you a story that was probably the worst thing. It's not the worst thing somebody said to me during this time, but my son, when I was putting him to sleep one night, my wife was in hospice in the house. We wanted her to be comfortable. Unfortunately for her, which she was not happy about, she had to be in a bed downstairs instead of being in our bed upstairs.
Right.
And I'm sure these thoughts go through your head, like, I don't want him to die in the bed. I don't want to die in the house. Like, I'm worried about,
Yeah.
depending on
That's
the
right.
situation, right?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah.
And
Seems very reasonable.
and I was putting him to bed, and I don't know how many people I've shared this with, and I'm not sure I want him to know this. So, we can save it from him,
Yeah.
right? I'm putting my son to bed and I'm tucking him in, and his mom is downstairs and she's dying from liver cancer, end stages. I mean, she's getting yellow, starting to get to the point where we don't know if she, what she knows and what she doesn't know. Like, I mean, one of these days I picked her up out of the bed and carried her outside and laid down with her on a beach chair or whatever, just to get some sun. Anyway, tucking him in, and he looks at me and he goes, "Dad, when are you going to get me a new mom?" And to me, like, Emily sacrificed her whole life for him. Like, she was the rock. I just was on the road sales guy. Like, I just made money. That was it. She did everything. I didn't do laundry. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean. I mean, we started dating when I was 18. I didn't do my own laundry till I was 35 after she died.
Right.
I didn't cook my own, I mean, none of it.
Right.
And when he said that to me, it just made me realize that, like, deep down inside, we're all so primal, right? Like, he's thinking, okay, I'm losing a mom. I'll just get another one.
Right.
Because I need a mom.
Right.
How am I going to live without a mom?
Yeah.
Right.
And then, I kind of look back at it because backtrack to when I was 13 and my dad died. For a longest time, I felt guilty because I remember thinking to myself, but what would have happened if it was mom and not dad? Like, how would we survive without mom? Well, my kids had to survive without their mom. So, like, I don't know what that's like.
Right.
Here I am trying to figure out how they're going to deal with the grief when I had to deal with grief when I was young, but because it was a different situation, a different person, it was different. All grief is different.
It reinforces it. Grief is this universal thing that we all experience, but every experience is so nuanced and so personalized and individualized, and you can't replicate it from one person to the next. Nobody knows exactly how you're feeling or experiencing. It's nuanced based on the people, the relationships, all of these. I mean, no two personalities are identical.
No.
So how can
No.
a grief experience be identical? But yeah.
On top of that, one thing that I've taken a step further, and I don't know if it's really a step further or just the same thing you just said, is that everybody, let's use one grief instance. Let's just say I lost Emily, my wife.
Yeah.
And here I am with my family, and we're all grieving, but we're all different, grieving differently.
Exactly.
She was my wife.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Nobody else had her as a wife.
Correct.
She was my brother-in-law's sister. Nobody else lost their sister.
Not
It was my mother-in-law's daughter. Nobody else lost their daughter.
Right.
Absolutely.
100%.
It's
So it's
100%.
great.
So
different,
nuanced.
it's different relationships,
Right.
different meaning. That person has a different meaning to
Right.
everybody.
Relationship,
And-
everything.
And so often grief can bring people closer, but it can also break them apart because, again, there are these different experiences and not necessarily the understanding that those experiences
Yeah.
are so unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I told you, when people are dealing with grief and things like that, I mean, who am I? I'm just another guy, right? I've just had to deal with it a little bit more than the average person. And as I get older, that's going to vanish. Everybody's going to end up dealing with it more. I just had to deal with a lot when I was young.
Right.
So as I try to help people and when I talk to them, the easiest way for me to explain it is in this analogy is terrifying for me because I do not like dark water, but it's like you're in the ocean and it's pitch black and there's storms and the waves keep hitting you
Yeah.
over and over.
Yes.
The rain doesn't stop. The boat goes by and they don't see you, right? You're sitting there. But over time, what is dark is always going to be light. Over time, the air starts to clear, the sun comes out, the
Right.
waves recede.
Right.
Now-
Calm
now-
eventually.
Right. Now, it can be calm and a tsunami come out of nowhere and hit you one day.
Correct.
Right. Totally.
Right.
100%.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Right?
That's-
Like
Yep.
you don't know the triggers. You don't know why it's going to affect you. You don't know when.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden you're doing great. And then you get smacked with something and you're like, maybe I'm not so great.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is all natural.
Yeah.
I always say it's like the punching bag with like the smiley face on it, like when you're kids and it's just like keep
Mhm.
bouncing back and it's
Yeah.
like no matter how hard that thing gets hit,
It's
still
coming
comes
back.
back with a smile. It's
That's
like,
right.
yeah, I really don't have a choice and here I am.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
brutal.
Right.
It is
Well,
brutal.
And I was listening to a previous podcast that y'all were talking about. And, if I didn't have kids, I don't know what my grief would have looked like.
Correct.
Totally.
I had to get out of bed. I mean, don't get me
Exactly.
wrong. I
Right.
did have help. So I had a nanny and I had an au pair to try to help me
Yes.
adjust. But
At the end of the
I
day, it
mean,
was still
like I
you
couldn't
and-
just lay in
No.
bed all day.
Right.
No,
Right.
right.
Like
No.
as much as you want to. Right. And you could.
See-
And nobody would blame you.
It's interesting that you say that because I had the same thought. Like, I can't. I literally have a 3 and a 4-year-old and like not fully potty trained. And they're like, one of them was in diapers and I'm having to deal with pull ups. And I said to my therapist, like, I have no choice to get out of bed. And she said, but you do, because there are people who are not getting out of bed and not dealing with the things that you did deal with. And I just didn't realize that.
And it's so true because I think the three of us, we all lost our spouse when our kids were young.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had to get out of bed. I had 4 young children. My oldest was 12. I had a 9-year-old, twins of 4. And I had to get out of bed and I had to be with them and I had to raise them and I had to be an example to them. But it's come back now. Now that I'm an empty nester
Mm.
and now that they're grown and flown, I find myself sitting with grief that I should have felt all those years ago. There are times where recently at night I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? So yeah, we do, but I think we also suppress so much of that
Mhm.
grief because we're so conscious of getting our kids to a point of where they need to be and,
Right.
making sure that they're healthy and that they have a great childhood, whatever that looks like.
It's that autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, so I got one married. We managed to get through the wedding
Wow.
and, and I've got and they're all living all over the country and all successful. And then it's like, oh, so I really am a widow?
Yeah. So now it's your turn.
Don't
Yeah.
I
Right.
that person?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's
Interesting. I mean, it totally relates, right? Like there are times
yeah,
that I think about my father and be like, what would he say?
Mhm.
Right.
I don't even know him,
Yeah.
yeah,
right? Like, I
yeah.
mean, I don't know, right? Like,
Right.
one day, whether it's I'm cutting the grass and the lawnmower stops, I'll be like, my
Right.
dad would know how to fix this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And like,
right,
a father, a father question. Like
Mhm.
everybody has somebody they go to talk to. I'm always going to have that void, right? My kids are always going to have that void.
always,
But
always.
it's not, I mean, it's human nature to have that void and to try to replace it with something, but it's also beautiful that it's always there.
Yeah,
It's kind of a
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
we always talk about Emily. There's pictures of Emily up around the
Mhm.
house. It's a constant conversation, right?
Correct.
The kids talk about it, all that stuff. She was a big camper at Camp Barney Bennett's. The kids go to Camp Barney Bennett's. They made a dedication to something there. So every
Right.
summer the kids go hang out on the Zula and it's Emily's Zula and it's like their way to connect to their mom.
Yeah,
There's an annual fundraiser.
Yep.
Emily's Trick or
Yep.
Treat.
There's
in
Emily's trick or,
Atlanta.
yep. Trick or treat.
Yeah, there's
Yep.
some special things
Yep.
to keep. Yeah.
You know,
it is. Spirit alive.
Because this situation was so heavy, I think, inside the community here in Atlanta, especially because her family was pretty active within the Jewish community,
Right.
it was, I mean, overwhelming, humble of how people came out of the woodworks.
Wow.
I mean, there were candlelight vigils at our house for Hanukkah. There were people. I mean, her best friend would fly to MD Anderson with us, or whatever. Like
Wow.
everybody,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I think at the time, the reason why that's the case is because everybody knows what you're dealing with is the worst thing, and they never want to deal with it, and they feel bad for you for having to deal with it, and they want to do anything they can to help you.
Right.
Yes. And you and Emily put a lot of amazing energy out into the world, and people felt that. That is what people have told me in terms of me and Jared, because I continue to be in awe over this community that continues to support us even 4 years later.
Oh yeah.
And what people tell me is that, it's because of the community that you guys built. So you guys, like, you
That's
need to take some
testament to who
credit
you
for
are.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not me.
No.
Well, remember, she chose you,
Yeah.
like y'all chose each
She didn't
other.
have
So
a choice. There were a lack of choices.
No,
I got that.
I
So
think she knew what she was doing.
give yourself some credit, because you still have a community that continues to support
Without
the
a
three
doubt.
of you and lift y'all up. And that's something that it's a gift to have, I have learned. And I think, again, when you're talking to other people who are going through the grief journeys, and that's part of it, like just trying to help others go through it. You're paying it forward.
Yeah.
That's what
Got
you're
to.
doing. Right.
Got to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, so one thing, when you said what Jordan said about, when is he going to get a new mom? So our situation was different in that it was very sudden.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's got to be.
Well, and I can't imagine, like,
I know.
same, it's just like, I can't imagine.
Just like I tell people, I can't imagine like my dad died when I was 13, but I can't imagine being in a household that had a divorce.
Right. And
Like it's just
It's
equally
all-
traumatic.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that I will never forget, though, is it was 2 years after Jared died, and I planned like my first solo trip. Like, I went to Cancun, and Jack says to me as I'm like getting ready to walk out the door, he says, go find a stepdad for me.
Yeah.
I said, well, buddy, like, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. And he was like, well, why not? And I said, well, first, they might not live in Atlanta. And second, and like, I'm going through the list.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, they'll just like move here. And I'm like,
Oh.
and I just, it made me realize, like, and we had already had conversations about, like, daddy could never be replaced, and, that's daddy, but, we can still have other people in our lives who love us and all of these things. So he was familiar with the concept of what a stepdad was, but just the fact that he thinks that it's so easy to just like find
Yeah.
someone, or not replace, but have someone kind of step into those shoes. That's just not. We as adults are like, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what? But
Yeah.
I feel like kids, just the way they think through these things and process it really is so different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's like they just think that there's a husband.
right.
Oh, there's-
Right.
Yeah.
There's a
Or,
mom.
we
Right.
replace mommy. And of course, like, as they realize that's not actually possible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yes, I feel like that really is like such a kid thing to say as they're going through it, but it crushes us.
Totally.
Like, that's so
They're
much.
not.
of
They're just
grief.
being honest.
Right.
Right.
And they just, that's
Yeah.
it. That's how they processing it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as parents, like, so much of our own grief is for our kids and like what they are either going to miss
Right.
or are missing.
Yeah.
And just like to your point, like how can you say that? Like mom's the glue that keeps us
Right.
all together.
Right.
It that just it just doesn't even cross their brains, right? It's yeah, exactly, primal. Yeah.
And how have you found them now that they're older? You said your daughter's almost 17.
Yeah.
And your son is,
He's going to be 14 in a few days.
wow. So
Yeah.
he's
Wow.
middle school or
Yeah,
high
he's
school?
going into 8th grade and my daughter's going into 11th.
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
junior.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you find that there's been a shift in the way they talk about their mom, or do they not talk about her that much? Or
They talk about her a decent amount. I think it just
Right.
depends on like they've never felt like they can't,
yes,
right?
yes,
Even with Stacy.
right.
So,
And Stacey's your girlfriend.
Stacy's
just for
my
the
girl,
listeners.
who
Yes.
lives next door to me.
Yes.
I bought the house next door to her.
Yeah.
We share a fence. I've got 2 kids. She's got 2 kids. They're all the same age. I have a dog. She's got a dog.
Oh,
He even made a gate in between the fence.
Love it.
love,
So yeah,
love.
she's got the trampoline and the basketball court. I've got the tree house
There you
Yeah.
and
go.
all the video
Love it.
games. I mean,
Perfect.
it's like a sort of a setup.
And
Yeah.
the kids are all
Yeah.
get along.
They all get along. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as much as kids get along, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
But I mean, it wasn't initially like that, right? Like
Right.
we start. So, I mean, to give you an idea, I probably, I want to say me and Stacy probably started officially dating maybe 6 months to a year. Not a year. That's given way long. I mean, we started dating before then,
Mhm.
but like it wasn't,
Right.
that's another side of
It's
the
just
grief side of
weird,
thing
yeah.
and being in the community, because then you've got people looking at you like, what are they
And
doing?
Judge,
Right.
But
yes.
I will say this, since we were both widows,
It was
we
different.
could do whatever the hell we wanted.
Yeah.
Everybody was just happy that we were together.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
But you found each other.
so
Correct.
that's been a little different. But at the beginning, because there were so many people on both sides and the kids, and she worked at the school my kids went to, and I had to sit in parent teacher conferences with her.
Oh my
I
God.
used to mess with her saying, I'm going to like move my leg into the table and start rubbing your leg or something like that. She'd like look at me like, but yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean,
Yeah, your
it's like,
stories are so
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, they are.
it's like, you hear people talk about life being a simulation. It's like, how does so many things like fall into
Oh my
to place?
gosh,
Right.
absolutely.
So she grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, Mountain
Wow.
Brook.
Oh,
Her whole family were in the same fraternity as I was at Alabama. I never knew her. My roommate in college, his parents are best friends with her parents.
That's
that's
I used to go to Alabama football games with her cousins,
mhm.
and I didn't meet her until my wife introduced me to her. I want to say it was about a year before my wife died
Wow.
in Destin at a beach.
Wow.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
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 And that was going to be one of my questions is, did you and Emily discuss the future?
Yeah.
Because I know Mark and I never did. And that is my one regret today, because I think we just felt at the time, if we spoke about it, we accepted that it was going to
happen.
It was going to happen.
Yeah.
But so did you?
So Emily would make comments, and keep in mind, like we're both goofballs,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, so it's like, so what about that one? I'll be like, what are you talking about? What about that one? What do you think? What do you mean? What do I think? What are you talking about? Well, I am not having this conversation with you.
Right.
We're done. Like,
Right.
done. Like, I don't know why you think this is funny.
It's that morbid humor though.
Right.
Like it just
Well, you got
can
to, 'cause
laugh
you
and
got to.
cry.
That's
Exactly.
it.
No,
We
exactly.
would sit in the house and everybody around us,
Yeah.
20 people in the house. Because, I mean, like I said, it was a very,
Family.
there were people
yeah,
in and out. People were taking care of our kids. Like we were doing,
Right.
totally.
and like everybody around us was losing their goddamn mind.
Right.
And like me and Emily would look at each other and be like, how are we the only ones that aren't crazy?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
You're
Right.
dying and I'm going to be stuck here
Right.
without you. And our mothers are driving us nuts.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, or like,
Yeah.
people are like family members are saying crazy things to us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Right.
And then, and then you get stuck with everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, we had, I mean, and this might be because of our families passed, we always both kind of went at each other like I was going to die before you.
Mm.
So like my dad died when he was 13 and his dad died when he was 13. So I guess I was going to die when my son was 13 or
Right.
my daughter was 13 or something like that. So it's like that's always kind of been in my head a little bit. And Emily was always sick with colitis. So she always felt so like we kind of would talk back and forth. The plan wasn't for it to come out the way that it did.
Of course.
Of course.
Unfortunately, you know, I mean,
The plan was always for you guys to live forever,
Well,
but
right.
yes, like,
Yeah.
Right.
yes,
Right.
I totally
Right.
get it.
Yeah.
so, you know, we are where we are,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we can't talk about how we got here. I guess we can. That's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
But,
Fair.
you know, if you're not getting better, you're not moving forward, you're losing. You're moving back.
Correct.
So, you know, one thing that you have to do is just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to be, you don't need to go crazy.
Right.
Just
No.
move. I mean, like 1% better.
Yes.
1%.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
Getting out
what
of
is the
bed.
book? Oh my God. I'm like, there's
Atomic Habits.
yes, thank you. Like,
1%
yeah.
will increase you 325% for the whole year or something like that.
yeah, like
Yeah.
if you do just 1% every day,
Yeah.
like you will move mountains.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. I am just wondering, have you remained close with Emily's family?
Yeah. So Emily and I started dating when we were at 18. And,
Yeah.
you know, I became close to her family living here because she had a very close family. Her parents, her mom was a first generation American. Well, actually was born in Cuba.
Oh,
And they moved here to the States, I guess, when she was in high school.
Oh,
Wow.
When Emily's mom was in high school.
I didn't do that. That's so
Okay.
cool.
And then they lived in the North Druid Hills area, and that's how they ended up going to Sherith, Israel,
Oh, got it.
because they
Okay.
lived on Bramble.
That's the synagogue. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay.
grew up at the same synagogue. Okay.
So they live here in Dunwoody. They've been very active in our kids' lives. Emily's mom and stepdad live in Charleston. We see them maybe a couple times a year. And Emily's brother is from it lives in Nashville now, but he lived here for a little bit. He moved here the week Emily died.
Oh,
He came down here and moved his whole family down here
wow.
because he had been in med school at MCG for a while, lived out at Scripps
Wow.
in San Diego, lived in Nashville doing work there, and then
Wanted to be, yeah.
He
wanted to come down. They had a really good relationship.
Yeah.
So David moved down here, and she died like a week or two
Oh,
later.
wow.
I remember when Emily was dying and her brother was moving down here. One thing she said to me, she says, "Watch this. I'm gonna die, and they're gonna have a kid." That's exactly what happened.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Wow.
Their kid's name is Emmett. Named after Emily.
Aw, that's beautiful.
Really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a really good relationship. So I keep in touch with everybody. But
Okay.
so when Emily passed, her grandmother was still alive, who I viewed as my grandmother pretty
Right.
much. So I still had a relationship. I mean, I'd go over there once a
Right.
week, you
Yeah.
know, and we just had a close family here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of trauma in the family. So
Yeah.
Emily's uncle died of glioblastoma multiforme.
Oh gosh.
After my daughter was born, there's been cancer throughout her family. Her mom's had breast cancer, grandmother, aunt has breast cancer, grandfather had prostate cancer, had a melanoma, had to get his eye removed.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
They're all at Romanian and Eastern European
Yeah.
bloodline. So there's a lot of
Lots
issues.
of-
So
yeah.
we would joke around that my dad's side would maybe mudblood the kids up a little bit so that they would be not as unhealthy Jewish kids as normal Jewish kids. And if we really want to get into it, on 23andMe, I was 44.6% sub-Saharan African,
Oh wow.
and recently found out that my mom and dad had to elope to get married because in 1969, in the state of Louisiana, you couldn't mix race, you couldn't
Mix religion.
mix races. And my dad's birth certificate had mulatto on it, not white.
Wow.
My great grandmother had some lineage, and
Goodness.
See,
Isn't that
Wow.
nuts?
That's crazy.
Yep.
That's wow. That's why.
They had to elope to Mobile, Alabama. The progressive area of Mobile, Alabama, because they didn't know the family name, so they could do a blood test, and if it didn't come back with a race, that was fine, and that's what happened.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
you're Alabama. Oh my
That's right.
gosh.
That's right.
Wow.
Hello to all of our listeners
Yeah.
in Mobile, Alabama.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. So
Oh my goodness.
What is something now that your kids have done or said that you realize after all these years you've done okay?
nothing.
Oh, come on.
They've
Come
got
on.
so
Look.
much.
Look, I think that kids are super resilient. I think growing up, everybody has a different path to get to where they're going. I think, I know my kids are going to be fine,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Yeah.
getting there.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, genetically, their mom and their dad weren't maybe the best students or the best kids in school. But eventually we got our stuff together. They will get their stuff together.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's not a worry about it. I mean, once again, they've been extremely resilient. They've had to deal with a lot in their life.
They've had to deal with a lot.
I mean,
So what message would you give to a parent who's a dad who's just found himself in your situation?
Or is going to be.
Or is
in your
going to be.
situation.
Yeah. What is something that you would say?
Like,
I would say that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that we all want to know, right?
yeah.
Correct.
Everything's going to be okay eventually, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always going to be okay.
And we just have to.
The only person it's not okay for is Emily.
Yeah. That's
Exactly.
right.
Everybody's going to be fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part about it.
Yeah.
I remember Emily's funeral. We were at Beth Shalom off of Winter's Chapel.
Right.
And it was about 30 minutes before Emily's mom worked. It was 30 minutes before we were in the library. Emily's mom works there. She's the executive director. And I remember telling the rabbi, like, did y'all set up chairs in the back for people to sit? He's like, well, I don't know. Let me go look. And then we went back there and they said they didn't have enough chairs to set up. There were people lined along the walls.
I believe
Wow.
And when we left in the recession, like in the
Yeah.
cars or whatever,
Yeah.
there were people on the side of the road saluting.
Oh,
They thought that there were so many people there that
That
it
it
was
was
like
right.
some sort of
like
well, she was a celebrity.
well,
Yeah.
right.
She was a
But
celebrity. Yeah.
yeah. But I
Wow.
mean, as far as any advice goes, right? Like I said, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Don't be too hard on yourself, but hold yourself accountable. I know that's
Good
really
advice.
like hard to say
Right.
or hard to explain, but you have a pass of some sort,
Absolutely.
Right.
but you can't always use it.
Correct.
And it doesn't
Exactly.
matter, right? Like,
Right.
Because the real world, they don't care.
right.
The real
Like if
world
I don't hit
is-
my numbers,
Yep,
it's not
they
like, oh,
don't care.
Kurt's a widow. It's okay.
Right.
Right? Like,
right.
you don't do good in school.
Exactly.
Somebody's not going to say, well, you lost your mom. You're going to be okay.
And
You're
that's
fine.
exactly
Whatever.
what I
Right.
told my kids
Right.
when it happened. I said, don't ever use the excuse that, well, your dad died.
Yeah.
I said,
Right.
the only people who care and really, really care are your inner circle,
Yeah.
inner family, inner friends, the world keeps turning.
That's
It does.
the
The
best part of life
turning.
and the worst part of life.
Yep.
The best part
Yep.
of life is that life goes on. The worst part of life is that life goes on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that the
It's like
truth?
you don't have time
Yeah,
to stop, think, whatever.
exactly. That's so true.
And it's heartbreaking,
Mhm.
Right.
but it's not, there's nothing you can do about it.
Correct. Right.
I use a parent coach to get me through parenting. And
I have a parent coach that lives next door to me. That's also my. So.
I feel like it's the best form of therapy, to be honest. But something that I've learned from her is the concept of repair. And like, I have my bad days. I get
Mhm.
frustrated, and especially like in those first couple of years when you're like really just trying to figure out like how to even like float.
Yeah.
It just, I've realized like we're not perfect. We
Mhm.
all have to figure out how to do this. It's like what you said, you're going to be okay. I remember in my eulogy, like I said, I know we're going to be okay. I don't know how, but I know we're going to be okay.
Mhm.
And we are. And I
Mhm.
can't tell you how we got
Right.
here.
Yeah,
But-
exactly.
Right.
But we
Yeah,
are.
exactly.
But
It
I will
just
tell you,
happens.
yeah.
just
It's
happens.
fun.
There's been
It
a
does. It
lot
just
of
happens.
apologizing and a lot of accountability on my part for, realizing, okay, I totally dropped the ball, or I was not, a good mom 30 minutes ago. I'm really sorry. And just trying to repair and acknowledging. And that has helped me tremendously.
And I think another thing for me is, and I don't know if Kurt, you were like that, and Greer, I I always think that this was wrong. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but I didn't necessarily show my kids that I was grieving. I was so conscious of making sure their world was okay that they never saw me cry. They never saw me, get angry, or it was like I was trying to create perfection after this. And it's not always good. And for anyone out there listening, it's not the way to go, because then my kids found it really hard to show their emotions,
That's
to
right.
cry,
Yeah.
to be angry. And it kind of came out in different ways.
Mhm.
We're better about it now. But so for me, that would be my advice. If you're going
Yeah.
through it like the three of us with young children, it's okay to show your
You have to be real.
vulnerability, and it's okay to, especially as a man, to show, well, cowboys do cry,
Duh.
and that's okay.
Yeah. So it's funny you say this, right? Because I don't know. Maybe I'm a narcissist. I always try to think about things from from my eyes, meaning like
Yeah,
when my dad died, or
right.
when I went this way, or the only way I can look at a situation is to try to relate it to something that I'm dealing with,
Right.
It's like most people. Yeah.
So I don't mean to bring it back to me,
Mhm.
right? I don't want that to be the conversation, but when you go back and you think about how, as a man and a woman, regardless of what anybody wants to say, I don't care. We have different types of roles that we fill in a household, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
There is a caregiver type role,
Yeah.
and then there's a
Correct.
different role.
Right.
Can we all have both of them at the same time? Yes.
Mhm.
Are we going to be good at every aspect of it?
No.
Not at all.
Right.
Right? Like, if you break it down, when it comes down to it, survival is about roles.
Mm-hmm.
Caregiver, head of house. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mean to say it that way,
No, it's true.
but when you're trying, I don't even really know what I'm trying to say here. It's just that you dealing with grief like a normal person helps your kids see
100%.
normality,
Yep.
right?
Right.
100%.
And when they don't see that, then that's when their abnormally becomes normal to them.
Correct.
Right.
So to me, I rather over communicate. I'm an over communicator.
Yeah.
Emily and I had conversations that there was no conversation not had,
Mm-hmm.
not one,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And Greer, for you,
Mhm.
that hurts my heart that you didn't have that ability. Like, I can't imagine what it would have been like for me not to be able to tell Emily everything she needed to hear when she was done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
I mean, it's different.
It-
It's just
I
a
can't
different
imagine.
experience. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
I can't imagine my girlfriend having to deal with her husband having cancer for 4 years, roughly,
Yeah.
and 2 young kids.
Right.
So those kids didn't know what he was like when he didn't have cancer.
Right.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
It's
We
all
only
different
know it from our
journeys.
perspective.
We only know it from our
Totally.
journeys.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. So on that note,
Mhm.
I have been wanting to ask you. I heard, I think from a mutual friend or something, that Emily left either letters or videos or something for the kids for when they get older. Is that, can you tell me about that? 'Cause I just
Sounds
think
like
it's,
an urban legend.
well, I just thought it was so beautiful. And that's something, I mean, I better not die anytime soon. Jack tells me that I actually have to break the Guinness Book of World Records for the oldest person.
For sure.
I hope you do.
I thank you.
I break it.
And a note to my doctors.
Exactly,
So,
right.
yeah. But I just like, I always think about even just now going ahead and like writing a letter for, for them when they're older, just because, what if something does happen? So I just think it's beautiful.
There's a lot of different things that happened
Yeah.
towards the end of Emily's life that like different sets of friends did,
Mhm.
right? There were, whether it was a candlelight vigil, whether it was a party, whether it was this or that. I mean, we really did. I mean, the month before she died, we went to Jamaica, we went to Disney World, like there were things that we got to do, right? And Emily, throughout her whole time, she was a creative writing minor
Yes.
at Alabama.
Okay.
And she had a gift to write. So she, on her caring bridge, basically wrote everything that she dealt with from the beginning to the end that is in a book that they bound and put together for the kids.
Okay.
There was also a book that was bound and put together of letters from all of her camp friends
I love that. Yeah.
that she kept at her bedside.
Mhm.
There was also handprints that somebody made for her on her deathbed that I have for my kids.
Beautiful.
There's, like I said, numerous things
Yeah.
that they have, and all of that is beautiful. And I don't know where it is, whether it was a gift to give to Hallie on her wedding day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still stuff coming at me. So my mother-in-law and Emily's friends could be listening to this podcast, being like, "Kurt, you forgot about this thing, you forgot about that thing," but they're probably not thinking that because they know that's me. You know that I would forget that. So that's why they have them.
Well, that's a beautiful thing.
And you're dealing with the day to day. So that's okay. And it's nice
okay for
that
somebody to fight for you.
100%.
100%. And to allow them.
That's right.
Yes.
To allow people
That's
to
right.
do that.
Yes.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
And someone, I've said this a few times, but after Jared died, there was a GoFundMe that was put together. And
Mhm.
I was so adamant about not doing it because there were people who literally could not put food on
Yep.
their table. And
And they wanted to put food on yours, right?
Oh my God. It was a trigger. Like it was just too much. But someone reminded me, it's not about you, it's about them.
That's
They
right.
need something to do.
Yeah.
So it
You
gives
need to make
Emily's
them
people
feel better.
right.
Don't you know that?
I mean, God.
I mean,
Right.
Emily, the year and a half of her life, her whole job was to make everybody feel bad about her dying around
I
them.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
true.
it is.
It's so true.
so hard. It's to me, it's making people feel uncomfortable with the uncomfortable
That's
because like when you're in it, you have no choice. So it's making those around you able to, talk about it, deal with it, whatever it is that they need. But with all of the things that were done or are still coming, it gives people close to the four of you something to do and to be a part of.
Exactly.
And
Just like the casserole
Yeah.
parade,
Yeah.
right? That you
Yeah.
did, and all the feet. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
I had more meat. I ate more meals in
I
that
mean-
year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nonstop.
Right.
Every day there's something.
Nonstop.
Oh, we
Yeah.
got this. We got
Totally.
that. We got this.
I mean,
You
the
get
amount
people
of-
coordinating it.
Yes.
Nuts. So
I know.
oh,
I know.
it's crazy.
It was.
We had people paying for us to fly for her to get treatment at MD Anderson.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
people come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. But again, remember, because that
It's
doesn't happen for
testament.
everyone.
Yeah.
It's a testament.
Mhm.
I know.
It's a testament.
Sorry, I didn't
You
realize
guys-
what you said.
Well, it does. It totally does. But the reason that they're wanting to do it it's a testament to you guys. So
Yeah.
just remember that.
It's very nice.
Not everyone has the support
That's right.
that we have been fortunate to have.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, Kurt, thank you so
I
much
know.
for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad I could be the one male voice of widowership.
Widowhood, yeah.
The others in the future, but
The
at
exclusive
least for
club that
first.
nobody wants to be a member of.
Right. It's
Correct.
brutal. I know.
But now that we're in it together, we're in it together.
That's
We're in
right.
it together.
That's right.
So,
Right.
And we'll have to have you back on because I feel like we could keep talking like for
Yes.
hours and hours. So
Yeah.
yes,
and
thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks for having me.
vulnerable and just amazing.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank
Anytime.
you, Kurt.
Thank
you.
you.
So for everybody listening, thank you for being with us today. And hopefully you can take away a lot of things that'll help you on your grief journey.
Mhm.
And
And for all of the dads or those that are missing their dads or are wanting to be a dad but are not a dad yet, we're just thinking of you and holding space for you as we come up on Father's Day weekend. I know it's not easy for a lot of us.
yeah,
So just sending extra hugs and just strength to get through the day. It's one day and we can do it.
yeah.
So we will,
You know what?
yeah, tell
If
me.
you can't do it for one day, just do it the next day.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
You got to know what you're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
So find us wherever you find your podcast
Yes.
listening.
Spotify, Apple, and so on. And you can follow us, Grief and Grit Podcast, and visit us online, visit our Substack, and we'll be back.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you love what you heard, please follow Grief and Grit and share our podcast with your friends and family.